Recently, I was doing exactly what you're doing right now, watching a bunch of YouTube videos comparing different video editing software, and I realized a lot of them have weird biases towards whichever software the creator just switched to. Usually they're either excited about how much faster Final Cut Pro is gonna be or about these cool new features that they're gonna get out of Premiere Pro. Also, more and more, I'm seeing people talk about switching to DaVinci Resolve. We're not gonna address that in this video because I just feel like it's not quite there as a mainstream NLE editor yet. It's gonna get there. If you don't wanna spend any money, it's amazing, go download it now. A quick thank you to this video's sponsor, Clean My Mac X. More about them later. So how are you gonna choose which software to use? You could just look at a list of features. You're probably gonna find that Premiere has more things that it can do. It's a longer list. But that's not telling the whole story at all. I went and talked to some professional editors doing some of the best work in the world, and they both made different software choices. Thomas Grove Carter uses Final Cut Pro and he works for Trim Editing based in London. He works on major commercials for Nike, Audi, Mercedes, and music videos for Ed Sheeran, Major Lazer, and more. You have definitely seen his work. He is incredible.
Hey Tyler, how you doing?
Can you tell me a bit about why you choose to use Final Cut?
Well, I found that Final Cut 10 is the fastest way I'm able to work as an editor. It's the only NLE that I feel really lets me get into a proper creative flow and just keep working, getting the ideas from my head onto the screen.
You've also probably seen some videos by Johnny Harris. He is doing the Borders series on Vox Media, where he travels around the world and does little documentaries about countries that he's in and how they interact. It's amazing stuff. It's mind-blowing. It's absolutely beautiful. He has really advanced title sequences, and he relies on Premiere Pro and After Effects to get his work done.
What I love about Premiere is just the flexibility within it and the customization that exists. I can edit a vlog probably in half the time with Final Cut if it's chronological and simple. But as soon as it gets super complicated and I need 4, 5, 6 tracks of video to play around with, Final Cut just turns into a nightmare for me.
The app itself is really deep and complex, I think. It's kind of, everything's like turned off by default. All the settings are hidden, all the functions and buttons and things are just sort of hidden away, and you can pop them all out, and all that complexity is there. Brand new editors who've never edited with anything before pick up Final Cut 10 really, really quickly. It's people who have known normal NLE timelines. You have to kind of unlearn a bit of muscle memory and the way things work, because things are a little bit inverted.
In Borders episodes, there are a ton of visual effects. You have a lot of map animations, you have a lot of titling, you have a lot going on, a lot more than I do. What is it about Premiere and the Adobe suite that lets you do that?
Definitely integration with After Effects is a big one for me.
Could you do an After Effects Final Cut workflow?
No, I could. I totally could. More and more, I find myself rendering out MOV files or MP4s from After Effects so that I've got effectively a video file. I feel like Final Cut optimizes for being able to lay down footage in the way you shot it in a way that is so much faster and so much smarter. But that's not what Borders is. Borders is not, it's not a vlog, it's not chronology. It ends up in some janky rendition that has nothing to do with chronology. It has to do with topics and story beats that just group very differently, and After Effects, Final Cut Pro does not seem to facilitate, at least to my knowledge, that sort of a workflow that's very, very nonlinear.
When I look around, I can see a lot more examples of feature films that have used Premiere to edit the feature than Final Cut 10.
Avid was or is the standard thing that people cut in. Final Cut 7 came in and sort of worked off that same metaphor, and that became popular. And I think when Final Cut 10 kind of threw everything out and decided to reimagine the way things worked, Premiere is a great replacement for that Final Cut 7 and Avid workflow. It kind of, it works in the same way. Yeah, but there have been big productions that have used Final Cut 10. I think it's a bigger commitment from the people from the editing department. I mean, right where I work now, there's a couple of editors are working on a 6-part Channel 4 Netflix drama here, which they're doing. They're 50 shoot days, they're getting rushes every single day. And I think big Hollywood studios probably, when things work, you kind of stick with what's working. There's no point rocking the boat.
I actually did try with the intention of switching and quickly ran into a ceiling of like, man, I feel like I'm learning this, but I don't feel like it has the capacity to do what I need for my specific workflow.
How often do you run into performance or stability or reliability issues with Premiere?
I'll just have like days at a time where Premiere is just acting up, where it's either freezing, or it's crashing. Render times certainly are just, it takes a long time. Like I'm looking at my 16-minute edit right now, which is chock full of stuff. You know, it's 8 layers deep and like everything. And I know every time I want to render something out, it's going to be, 35 minutes, 40 minutes with my big maxed out beast of a laptop. And there's nothing I can do about that.
What's something that you do feel missing from the Final Cut pipeline?
Sort of easier collaboration with other editors, whether that necessarily needs to be tied to shared storage or if it's cloud-based. I don't know exactly what it is, but kind of a nicer, it works well now. We have multiple editors working on projects and we've got a Jellyfish and we kind of share projects and stuff like that. It works well, but it'd be nice if there was a bit more of a seamless way of doing it.
Thanks so much for your insights, Johnny, and good luck with the next episode of Borders. So after I did these interviews, I thought I had the whole story figured out. It's kind of been like this for years. Final Cut is faster and can get the job done easier. It's a little more elegant, but Premiere is more versatile and just has more stuff that it can do in total. In fact, I already tried to record this video 2 times, basically saying that, test. And then something weird happened. Before I was able to release the video, I got this text message from Johnny just out of nowhere.
Hey Tyler, I'm in a coffee shop finishing up Borders.
We'll get into that in a second, but first I want to thank the sponsor of this video, MacPaw's latest Mac cleaning software, Clean My Mac X. It helps you clean out all the clutter on your machine and get it back to running the way that it did on the day that you bought it. And I guarantee if you're a video editor, you have some clutter sitting around and it can definitely help with that. I've been using it for years and years, and it's always been able to help me clean out some of my hard drive, find some extra space when I don't have any left. And I know there is some sketchy Mac cleaning software out there, but MacPaw is an important part of the developer community, and the software has been notarized by Apple as being malware-free. And it was even voted App of the Month on Product Hunt. I put it on all of my machines, because with the click of a single button, it can do work that takes you hours to do on your own in the Finder. So to find out more, click the link in the description below, and thanks again to Clean My Mac X for supporting this video.
Hey Tyler, I'm in a coffee shop finishing up Borders and I just outputted the final, which, look at this thing, it's ginormous. These episodes usually take like 30 to 40 minutes to output, and I just outputted it and it was 10 minutes. And this is like an 18-minute episode, so it's like longer than it's ever been. I don't know what is happening here, but I'm not complaining.
So out of nowhere, Premiere's performance got way better. And then I saw this other video by MONIZ where she was comparing some really powerful modern PCs to the MacBook Pro and getting really surprising results. So I called up Matthew. I want to know what happened. I was really surprised.
So when I ran these tests, I did 2 specific tests. I render a video and then playback, because how is the timeline going to feel when we're editing a video? Is it going to be slow? Are we going to have a frustrating experience? And to my surprise, the MacBook Pro beat out all the laptops except for my crazy spec'd out desktop PC. And it did it by a considerable amount of time. And then when I did the playback test, Premiere still drops a lot of frames, but the MacBook Pro happened to drop the least amount of frames.
So now it's interesting. It makes it a little bit harder to choose if Premiere isn't so much slower. It takes one of the advantages away from Final Cut. And while all of this was happening, then I saw on Twitter that Jonathan Morrison is also working on a video comparing Final Cut and Premiere. So I had to give him a call to see what he was finding. Did you find anything really interesting in your test? Like, is there anything that you didn't expect to see?
I think probably what I was most surprised with is how hard Adobe's working on the Mac side of things, where I feel like there's this narrative that, if you want to use Premiere, you have to get a PC because it's optimized to work better. We built this custom rigged PC build that it's an awesome machine. It's super powerful, but throwing like the 2080 Ti in there, that's a really expensive card and it's powerful for sure. But the performance for what you would think you would get on the PC side of things, it's not as drastic as you might think.
After doing all this, did you find any simple way to break down a recommendation for somebody? If they have no predisposition to Premiere or Final Cut, what's something that could help them choose?
For me, if you're on a Mac, you should use Final Cut. Just point blank. I don't think there's a better option in terms of just get out of the way, speed. It's really smart. With Premiere, that was another thing that I noticed where even, shooting 16:9 using 2:1 frames and then dropping that in a project is one thing, but where I was actually shooting 2:1 video in Premiere, it won't auto scale it to the project, so it'll just drop it in and won't know the difference.
Right.
And Final Cut, you drop it in, it scales it appropriately, and those little things where you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, I think in the end, it's not really that interesting whether people want to get really excited and angry about different brands, but like in the end,
Right.
choose something that you end up feeling good about, and when you're using it, you feel like you're able to focus on the job and not so much on the conversation about Mac
Right.
versus PC, because it's not actually that interesting of a conversation in the long run.
I feel like I could make an equally awesome video in Premiere. It's not that it's a bad program. Obviously I'm comfortable in Final Cut, and they make great things in Premiere. Just it depends on how you use it, the machine you're using it. And I don't think, it's as unoptimized or as bad as some people, including maybe my older self, would have given it a hard time for.
I wanted this to be a pretty straightforward video. If you want these features, choose Final Cut. If you want these features, choose Premiere. But you know what? It's actually kind of hard to choose these days. But I hope this has helped inform you a bit about why you might prefer one or the other. In the end, they can both do absolutely anything you want them to. You won't be limited by using either piece of software. But the conversation doesn't have to stop there. All these people have been guests on my podcast as well, and we've gone way more in depth on topics like this and other creative obstacles, photography, filmmaking, development, design, whatever it is you do, we've probably talked about it on the show. StallmanPodcast.com. I'll see you guys over there. I'll hear you guys over. I won't see you or hear you. I gotta find a better sign off.